gorgeous. Be gorgeous, be amazing. And we are going to let the others in the room. And we've got it. Hello, hello. Hey, Donna. Good to see you. Suzanne, who is on a vacation. She just wants to be here to show off that she's, sitting and relaxing and seeing the water, I think. Hey, Roxy. Oh my goodness, Suzanne. It's just mean. Look at that. That's absolutely beautiful. So, I guess, we'll just sit here. It's only, I think, 97 or something like that here today, Suzanne. So, we're getting by and getting through. So anyway, welcome everybody. Welcome Roxy. Welcome everybody. It is 2:00, so we are going to get started. Welcome to Afternoons with AwA. Today we have Sean Creighton from Chandler Unified School District and Andrea Kaufman from Lightspeed, and they're going to talk to us about all the amazing work that they're doing together. And I'm not even going to go into a description because, like I just said to them, there's so many amazing pieces that they have in play that we're just going to give them the whole time to dive in. So everybody feel free to drop questions in the chat. They will definitely be open to questions. There might be times when we can interrupt their conversation. But feel free to keep it casual, put everything in the chat, and then we will make sure that we get time to answer all your questions. We will go for exactly 1 hour, 60 minutes, 60 minutes. At about 45, we will definitely just open it up and kind of set it free to have whatever conversations we want. But in the meantime, Sean and Andrea, I'm going to go on mute and turn it over to you if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Just go. All right.
Okay.
Take it away.
All right. Everybody's seen my slides.
Yeah, looks great.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, thank you. So I am Andrea. As Laura said, I am an account representative, senior account representative with Lightspeed Systems. And Sean, I'll let you introduce yourself before I keep talking here.
Yeah, I'm Sean Creighton. I'm the Director of Instructional Technology for Chandler Unified School District.
So thank you, as to you all have been very lovely in partnering with us to have this opportunity today. And as Laura said, really casual. This will be a little bit unique because we want to position this conversation as thought leadership, an opportunity to think about some of the newer challenges that we know many districts and district leaders are facing today. And in particular, different than what Lightspeed typically talks about. So when many of you think of us, we have been a market leader in the filtering space for over 2 decades. So we know the market very, very well. And as such, Lightspeed, as well as many other providers in kind of what was in the security filtering space, are really expanding our portfolios based off of your express needs. So I actually came over to Lightspeed with this SaaS solution that we'll really hit on today a little bit. Sean, that's why Chandler here are the great advocates for this solution. They're going to talk a little bit about what challenges they had, how to approach addressing a lot of the solutions, unknowns that you have today around, in particular, engagement. So when I go into the agenda here, so let me switch my screen. What we're really going to kind of talk about, again, from the thought leadership perspective. So bottom line, Lightspeed provides now an industry-leading solution that is software that tracks engagement of your students, of your users on premise, at home, as well as what tools are really being used. So we're going to focus on what are those challenges that we hear. So again, I came over to Lightspeed with this solution. I've been in the ed tech space for over 17 years. So it may not specifically fit all of what you're experiencing, but that's the beauty of the solution and trying to come up with the thought leadership and kind of a journey to success and helping you address some of these issues. So specifically, we know device usage has grown, especially here in Arizona. Even the district that my kids are part of. Man, they were scrambling, rolling out devices when the pandemic hit, and then trying to figure out how the heck do we manage these, make good use of them. The dependency on the digital resources, the growing number of applications. It was a quick rollout. Now that everybody were on the other side of that, our conversations are, okay, now what are we using? Is it effective? How do we manage that? And that's part of what that conversation will be today. So in the agenda, again, we'll talk to Sean. We've got Colleen behind the scenes there. So if Colleen wants to chime in as well, talk about their experience and how they're approaching it, which is really great, and what we recommend, and why I asked Sean and Colleen to join us today. And then we'll pop into the solution a little bit. So as you're hearing some of their use cases, the value of, again, trying to get a handle on what the student engagement is, how are your devices being used, how to manage student data privacy, all of those things that are part of that growth and part of that change. That's what we'll focus on today. So again, as Laura said, let us know your questions. Let us know, hey, elaborate on that. We can talk for hours about these types of issues, and especially around our solution. So I want to make sure it's relevant to all of you that are on today. So the first question I'll ask is, what are your challenges? So whether you really answer us right now, that would be great if we want some engagement and conversation, but I would say at least think about it. And the reason we're starting here is when we get on calls with folks, or we're talking to people, presentations at conferences and so on, the big thing is district leaders don't know where to start attacking some of these issues. So if I ask those questions, hey, have your device numbers grown? What did you roll out? What changed? How did you manage virtual learning? What does that look like? And those are still challenges. Those are still goals that districts have, even on the other side of the pandemic, because now you are more one-to-one. Now you do have more digital resources in play, right? So trying to get a grasp on that. So does anybody want to share, as we kind of go into what Chandler did, and how they're attacking those sorts of questions and challenges? Does anybody want to pop in and kind of share what your challenges were around rolling out devices, understanding engagement, efficacy of those tools? And if not, that's okay.
So one thing that I think that school districts are experiencing now after the pandemic is technology fatigue. So having that quick rollout, getting on everybody online, some people establishing an LMS like within days, trying to get people trained, getting all the kids remote learning. Now that we are past that, the challenge is, first of all, keep making sure people are still excited about the technology and the online and the engagement, not throwing it away because now we don't need to and everybody's sick of it. And also figuring out what worked and what didn't work. Like, how do we know with everything that was rolled out, what was truly successful, or what do we think was truly successful and which ones were not? A lot of money was given to school districts during the pandemic, which we're coming to the end of that budget. So we do need to know which programs are we going to continue and which ones are we going to let go just based on budget. So I think it's important to know where the successes were. And I don't mean it has to be one program for the whole district, even if it's in certain sections, communities, schools. If it's not successful, let's not renew it, type thing, and let's move on to something that is successful. So,
and I think there's an element of things that were right for the time, it's okay to let go of and not see it as a fail. And I think there might be a little bit of at least I've noticed with some districts, that like it's, this is what we've been doing, so we need to continue doing it. Or if we made an investment in this during, COVID times, we have to continue it now, or it wasn't a great choice. But there's right time, right place, and there's the resources. So I think that ties into what Diana's saying as well. I think is knowing what's good to let go of too, from a kind of mental space. I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah. And then Emily made a comment in the chat just talking about it's so hard to know where to start. Lots of bright spots and wins, and they do seem to happen in places where there's a high level of in-school support. So, looking for our champions. That's cool, Emily. You're right. So I don't know, Andrea, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you all are echoing what we hear every day, quite frankly. And what we're trying to do again is bring this conversation to the forefront, because what happens too, there's an element of student data privacy in there. So, one, focusing on the efficacy of your tools from a fiscal perspective, from an instructional perspective, but more than ever, what I keep telling people every time I go to a conference or a discussion, there's a cybersecurity panel. And I think, here we go again. But the reality is it's not stale. It's more relevant than ever. And we know that many breaches are happening through unknown tools that are being used and hitting your network. So trying to gauge that as well. So yeah, I mean, all the components that you've mentioned, and the goal is to kind of go, all right, let's come up with what your top 3, 4, 5 challenges are and concerns are, and try to give you some direction on answering the unknowns, getting some data, and then figuring out the processes to address some of that. So, but it's right in line, everything that you've mentioned with the conversations we're having. So, go ahead.
Can I tell you that poll that we just dropped, 86% of people said that student online safety is the #1 priority between online safety, interoperability, staffing, and device replace. So I thought that was really interesting. 86% is a lot.
So that's really good, because that gives me some credibility that I know what I'm talking about, because I couldn't see your response and that 86% of you said that. So that's really big. So with that, let's go ahead. Sean, I'm going to pass it to you. We've highlighted again some of what your use cases were. So do you want to speak a little bit about how, again, what your specific challenges were and how you are working and partnering with Lightspeed to try to address those challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it echoes lots of what we've already heard. In Chandler, we're a large district, obviously. We've had kind of a philosophy for a while of kind of site autonomy, that sites can kind of do what they want to do within reason. And we have processes to approve, applications and things like that. But unless we see a glaring issue with an application or a website that they want to utilize, they sort of get to do that. So, and then obviously during COVID, that just completely exploded, right? So an already sort of disparate situation with lots of different things being used out there, just multiplied exponentially, right? So how do we keep track of all that and understand what's being used, how it's being used? Is it being used with fidelity? How frequently is it being used? And then, again, is it making an impact on achievement, right? So that's a big concern there. Chandler has recently gone 1-to-1. We were a little bit behind on that compared to some of our other districts. I think we called it device deficient or device desert for a while, but we have quite rapidly kind of expanded that. Will be 1-to-1 this fall. So again, that's just caused those apps to kind of explode too. And that's kind of a challenge of ours too, is that we have different types of devices out there. We were largely a Windows district for a long time. There were pockets of Chromebook usage, and then during COVID, we threw Chromebooks everywhere, right? There's lots of Chromebooks out there. We have Mac Labs for CTE programs. We have iPads in the younger grade levels. So that's its own sort of challenge, is how do we keep track of the usage when there's all these different platforms? Just the hardware is different itself, let alone the apps or the websites that are being utilized too. I mentioned earlier that that we do have processes in place to approve app usage when a school wants to purchase a program or an application. That goes through our IT department to kind of vet for the networking requirements and hardware requirements and things like that. But then we have our ed tech coaches are usually the ones who are responsible for vetting things like the student privacy policies and the data collection and things like that. So that's not just the initial process for the approval to kind of do all that research and gather it all. And as you all know, that language can be kind of complicated, and sometimes, you know, companies claim to be really compliant, but they're not as compliant as it always needs to be. But then on top of that, how do you keep track going forward? Maybe that app looked really good when you looked at it in 2019, but maybe it was bought out by a different company a couple of years later, or maybe that company changed a few words in their privacy policy that has some big impacts on what that looks like. So the initial vetting is its own challenge, but then how do you keep up and maintain that list and make sure that that app you approved a year or two ago is still worth keeping? So that's been a challenge of ours. Again, like lots of you, that there's probably you know, resourcing challenges. How many people do you have on your staff? I know that was one of the options in the poll, was staffing. How many people do we have to even do that work? And so that's its own challenge there. We mentioned PD a little bit before too. You know, that's a big focus. As far as time is really precious. We don't have a lot of time in front of our teachers to do that PD. So it's really important that we maximize that time and make sure that, you know, that what we're doing is impactful and meaningful. So how do we leverage, you know, that app usage and the data out there to make sure that PD is really focused on what teachers need and what they use. And then obviously the last bullet there is the ROI. You know, funds. COVID, we had lots of funds kind of at our disposal, and so we were able to kind of put some things out in place. And now, as we all know, that's kind of drying up a little bit, right? So we need to really make sure that what we're doing is impactful, and that for the dollars we're putting out for those applications and things, are we getting what we think we're getting from those? And then also just kind of the efficiencies, right? Going back to the site autonomy, if we have, you know, a site here and a site here and a site here using different programs that do the same thing, or maybe they're even using the same application, but their site license, you know, for those 3 site licenses, we could purchase a district license for the same price and use those funds more efficiently. So having the data to make those kinds of decisions has been hard to come by for us sometimes. So that's its own challenge as well. Lots of challenges.
You were right, and you were saying that, and maybe Andrea, I'm sure you guys will get to that, but talk about you know, talk to how many apps you guys discovered once you started using the resources. Like, that blew my mind when you said that, and what you were able to take it down to. Is that something you're going to get to, or Andrea and Sean, or because that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
think we could answer this now, but
Yeah.
I want to start with this. It's one of the first questions if I get on, because here's what happens. Because district leaders don't know where to start, and there's so much information that you just don't have. It's almost like, it's so heavy, I don't know where to begin, or we're okay. We've got 4 or 5 different types of tools that are managing some siloed data. So maybe it's your firewall, maybe it's your filter. Somebody keeps a spreadsheet. And when I hear that, then I'm like, okay, you really need to talk to us. Those sorts of things. But the first thing we say is, or if somebody tells me, I'll start with that. Hey, I think we have a good handle on it. I'll say, okay, how many tools do you think are in use? So when I say tools, what we're really capturing are apps, web apps through a URL. So, and anything that has to do with education. So, Sean, I don't remember what your answer is, but a lot of times it's 2, 3, 4, 5, really 3, 4, 5 times more than what districts think. So Sean, tell the group what your number was when we went and we started running.
So I'd say we were sort of in that camp that Andrea said of, oh, I think we sort of have an idea. I mean, we probably knew that there were some out there being used that we weren't aware, but didn't think it was going to be too crazy. And so we deployed the solution. The initial kind of recommendations would wait like a week or two to kind of let things populate, and then we'll come back on and do a training on the interface. And so we waited those couple of weeks and came back on, and I think it was over like 1,800 applications were in that system. And that was a jaw drop moment for us to kind of realize, oh yeah, wow, we have a lot of work to do to wrap our head around what's being utilized out there, and you know, where it's being utilized. And yeah, that was definitely an aha moment for us.
Yep. And that's where you start. And that's what I tell folks as we're thinking of this. I will get into product. This is a little unique because there just isn't a product like what I'm going to show you and what Chandler is using in the market today. There is nothing that is as detailed and granular as what I'll show you. So it's a little unique in the fact that we can talk thought leadership, but I also want to show you, hey, there's some answers. We can get you answers. There are options to streamline these processes for you. And in fact, getting into Chandler, Colleen and Sean know this, I didn't go direct to them. There was a resource who became my buddy quickly as she started to understand the value of the digital insight solution, which used to be called Catch On. And she was like, we need this. And Colleen will say, this person was a little fly that wouldn't go away.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And so my point of that, and specifically bringing that up, a lot of times, and again, I know this because this is the conversation I'm having every day with district leaders, technology coordinators, C&I leads, things like that. Oh, did my screen?
No, I stopped it because we want to be able to see your faces when you're talking until you're screen sharing, and we're actually having a conversation in the background about how we're going to interrupt you as you're doing it, but keep going.
Okay.
Sorry.
So that's okay. So now I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry.
I know, it's what I said that was going to happen. Sorry.
Well, I'll say real quick, Andrea, too, that person that was kind of the cheerleader for that was one of our ed tech coaches. Again, at the time, I think she was one of 6 of our ed tech coaches. So 6 ed tech coaches servicing a district of our size. Again, all the work having to do to vet the applications and do all that. And I think the thing that, I mean, there were lots of things that she was impressed by, and then she kind of spread the word to the other 5 coaches, and they got impressed too. But the one that they liked the most was, oh my gosh, it'll show you when the privacy policy changes. It'll highlight the changes in the privacy policy. So now we don't have to go back and do it with a fine-tooth comb and do that. So that was interesting. Question in the chat from Emily. There are, I believe, just about 44,000 students in Chandler right now. So yeah, we have 10 coaches now. We have more than we had before. COVID may have had something to do with that. But.
I just want to mention that I think that 1,800 sounds like a lot, but really districts should contact either their IT department to find out how many, because you're going to be surprised at how many are being used out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times IT is not even aware of it. And then the other thing I want to say, because I know we want to get to the product, but when I talk to people about breaches, because we talk about cybersecurity and student data privacy and breaches, it's amazing how much focus we have on breaches, yet we're giving our data away sometimes without any safety. So we're not even waiting for a breach. We're saying, here's all our student data, and we don't have any privacy vetting or anything like that. So that's what I tell them is, yeah, there's the breaches. That's scary. I lose sleep over it. But you'd be amazed at how many times we're just handing it over without checking on the privacy of the student data. So.
You said something so key, Diana, and I love that you said it. You said IT often doesn't even know. Okay, so it's not for me, right? I'm in sales, folks. You know that. I want to sell you. I'm passionate about what I sell. I always tell people I didn't want to be in sales. I have a degree in psychology and community health. So at least it tells you a little bit of like how I think, where my heart is. What I'm so passionate about today is because it is so effective and it does make a difference. But when I talk to districts, I get really frustrated because, as Diana said, if you've got siloed data and you have teams that are attacking different components of these challenges that aren't communicating, you don't know what you don't know. So a lot of leaders will say, we're okay. But I'm like, but if you would just look at this, and if you would just think through this with us, there is an easier way. You do have risks. I guarantee it that you don't know. And I can be that confident and strong about it because I've seen it. I've worked with this solution for 3 years. I rep other things for Lightspeed too, but I came in as an expert on this solution. So we work with some of the largest districts in the country, but there's still so many that don't even know something like this exists. So with that, if you all are okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the product and kind of get into that, which I think will spur additional conversation. All right, everybody's seeing the dashboard here.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, so I can do a lot in this, but I'm going to try to focus on kind of those key points we focused on. Just general visibility into engagement, focusing on who's using what. A piece we really haven't even focused on. We've talked about understanding PD, efficacy of the tools, ROI. What about student outcomes? And really making sure we know all the challenges the students have had. One, just with rolling out heavy technology in general, but then also coming off the pandemic. But there's a lot of data in here for those leaders in your districts that are focused on student outcomes, which really should be pretty much everybody, right? That you're going to understand where mitigation may be needed. How do we keep that kid safe? How do we keep our network safe, but also help them thrive without putting them on the spot or just not knowing enough? So there's a lot of data in here. So right away, again, so this is Lightspeed's digital insight. They acquired it. It's been about 2 years ago. It was previously called Catch On. Somebody developed it that had been in the ed tech space that said, I can't find this information anywhere. So that's the history of it, that it was somebody real looking for those answers. And then now, of course, that it's come over to Lightspeed, it's been further developed and will continue to be further integrated into our other solutions. So what you're looking at here is just a quick overview of the dashboard. How I like to present this is say, this is your result. I'm going to dig in and show you kind of how we're pulling out and filtering and mining for some of that data. But ultimately what you want is ease of use. You want quick, I say kind of the quick and dirty of what you want to see. If you're somebody that wants a general overview, create a dashboard that tells you things like, what are my active devices time of day in and out of school? Show me top apps usage by grade levels. Does this match what you would expect it to see? But then if you've got somebody else that's focused on student data privacy, their dashboard can be different. So when we talk about all that siloed data that we know is pretty common based off of your resources that are or teams that are tasked with specific tasks each day, this is a bridge that kind of provides all that data that everybody can use. You can speak the same language, but you can customize it to have what you want to see. So I'm clicking into the student data privacy dashboard with 86% of you saying, you know, that safety is a concern. And I'm assuming here, and tell me if I'm wrong, but relative to what Diana was talking about, you know, the breaches, the risks, how to manage student data privacy, how to manage updates to your policy notification, those kinds of things. So you can create a dashboard that gives you a whole lot of great information right away. What new apps are hitting our network? Have they been vetted? Have we looked at them for student data privacy? This widget on the right-hand side is really big. So apps without approval that are requiring a student login. So your students are entering PII to get into this tool, but somebody hasn't even looked at it to approve it. So as Diana said, again, maybe it's not IT, what teams or what resources responsible for vetting that. There is an end-to-end workflow in here. Let's see what's in use. Let's make sure it's safe. Let's check out engagement. Are there multiple ELAs in use? Is there duplicity? That's a really big use case where districts save a lot of money with digital insight. They're going, okay, there's 3 ELAs that were purchased at a site level we didn't even know were in use. You want to believe that when you send out the report, the pen and paper, or you ask somebody to tell you, are you using this or not, you get the right answer. This will be the great truth teller. But it's not to slap hands. It's to say, hey guys, you got 4 ELAs in use. What do we really need to be using? If you're not using the one we really want you to be using, or the few, one of Chandler's big use cases, Sean mentioned, is PD. This is an opportunity to really understand what that engagement is. Do we need more PD? How do we support you? How do you support your staff to feel more comfortable using those tools that they should be using? Also on the student data privacy dashboard here's your privacy policy updates. So this is also in a report that we can pull up, but it's a widget. So how easy is it to see when any of your approved apps have an actual privacy policy update? So digital insight, different than any other tool in the market today, is scanning real time behind the scenes and is going to tell you, hey, here's the applications that have had updates. Now, just for time's sake, I won't click into this, but if I were to click on view updates, it's color coded for you. It's going to say, hey, Laura, we went from we don't share your information to we do share your information. That's a really big deal. So what do you want to do about that? So that's a big one that districts really love when you care about safety and security. This is a great convenience. Show us everything that's expiring. So this is not necessarily focused on the safety side of it as much, but it's a definite convenience. So when you get into the use case of ROI, don't you want to know and be informed when your licenses are expiring so that you're not just going, well, shoot, I'm in a rush, I'm busy. Maybe it's somebody from IT that hasn't been focused on engagement at all. It's just a shot in the dark. Let me go ahead and renew this. So I have a big district in Colorado that saved, it was a really big district, but they saved 17% of their ed tech budget. So 17% to anybody is going to be a lot. For them, it was $1.5 million. With this solution, checking out that duplicity, honing in on that true engagement. So when they go to renew the license, it's an informed decision. You can true up those contracts and really make smart decisions. So just a little bit there on what how the dashboards work. You can create those widgets with any tags that are in the system. We use the NWEA standards. That's not right. NCES standards, sorry. And so we already are going to have some innate tags that are in the solution when we track what is being used. And that's a big question. How do we see it? We're looking at URLs. So super easy to deploy a solution like this. We're going to work with you on a roster so we can get granular. And then we're going to put an agent on your client. We work on any device. So there's no issue there. So Sean talked about having different devices, growing their deployment of devices. So when things change or you grow, there's no issue there. We're really going to be able to capture a lot of it. That's really important too, that you're immediately going to be able to see. We've got a curated library of all those educational tools. We're going to match it up, and that's how we're able to see what's in use. So I'm going to pause here. So that's kind of an intro, but I'm already going a lot of way. What questions do we have so far?
There's so much incredible information, and we've got a little bit of stuff going on in the chat. And one of the things that I love was Diana's question is, how do we get the data to the dashboard? Like, where are you pulling it from? Does somebody need to champion that effort? And then I had wondered a little bit on top of that is, if we wanted these dashboards specific to user types, like different levels of permission, different levels of access to the, viewer versus whatever, would that be done through grouping? So if you wanted to maybe touch on all of that a little bit about how these dashboards look without, unless we're asking too granular of questions right now. But
You are. And so up here at the top, you can see this create dashboard. So
okay.
if I were to click on this, and it's going to take me somewhere, so I'm not going to go just start clicking. I would love to do, one-on-one, more specific questions, drill in with demos, things like that. But it's super easy. You're going to click create dashboard. You're going to name it. And then you're going to create what you want to see based off of the tags. So think of your tags as your filters.
Yep.
So when I click into trending apps, so that I clicked on the yellow tile, trending apps shows me, and that I am going somewhere with this, so bear with me, everything that we're capturing. So when Chandler saw 1,800 tools, it looked like this 1,800 times. We're matching up what they have. So out of the gate with our curated library, we're able to say, hey, yep, I see IXL. Here's how many users are touching it. And then when I click into that specific tool, we're going to give you a whole lot more information on what that tool is. So you can start to understand what other districts use it. Here's tags and categories. So when I talk about how we've already tagged it a little bit, we know it's adaptive learning, it's curriculum, it's student login. So for example, on that student data privacy dashboard, I said, show me everything that's not been approved, but is requiring a student login. That's from these tags. So that's how you're going to create each of those widgets. I can say, show me everything for Perry High School that has to do with math. That's either been licensed, unlicensed, approved, not approved. It's going to show me every tool that has been touched in that high school that has to do with math. So that's really how you're getting in and getting that granular data. You can also add your own district tags. So districts get really creative here. So it's for a project, it's around assessment, whatever that may be. And that's where those unique dashboards come into play. Hey, I'm somebody that's around assessment, or I manage our LMS. I want a dashboard that only has LMS specifics, or I'm only comparing ELAs and math, so you can get really creative. So Diana, does that answer your question?
Yeah, so it looks like, for just looking at it, it looks like it might be pulling from like a Google management, but it doesn't matter if you're a Google house, a Microsoft house, an Apple house.
No.
Oh, okay.
It does not. We're looking for that URL and we're matching it up to our curated library in the behind the scenes, which has about 6,000 tools in it. And as long as we go, yep, we recognize that, we're going to present that app profile and tell you who's touching it, who's used it. We can go all the way down to the student level. So it can be district, site, student. And that's what actually I'm scrolling down here. So I clicked into IXL, you start to see how that breaks down and gets more granular.
And this really ties back to what Sean was mentioning about PD and opportunities for, they're back in the day, I could remember, like, if it was sometimes hard to tell what sites were using a resource versus maybe not using a resource as much, had, like you said, duplicative resources where they were buying their own at the site level when we had a district level. Anyway, we could go on for days, right?
Yeah.
About all the opportunities there.
So look at this real quick, just as, the next level of that conversation. Once you approve it, so you see app actions up here in the right-hand side, we give you that end-to-end workflow. So we're not just saying, hey, here's a bunch of data, good luck, at least but now what do you do with it? We're giving you the workflow. You can add a license, you can mark it and review, you can approve it, you can not approve it. So you start to create your working list. Once you have that working list, this is where the ROI piece of it comes into it, and understanding, this applies to the PD, like the efficacy of the tool, the engagement, but also the ROI compared to what you paid for it. Colleen is great. So I love when I'm in a room with Colleen because she gets this piece of it really, really well, and understands the value. But I clicked into Edgenuity. All of my approved apps are in the scrolling list on the left. But look at this data. We're going to show you the average daily users. Is it trending up? Is it trending down in usage? So let's say, Sean just did PD. They just did some training. And right away, you're going to see, okay, wow, the engagement on this has increased by 30%. We're going to start to show you what that looks like. We're going to show you how many of the licenses are in use and whether that cost is reflective of what you think you paid. You're not using it. So if this were to say 30% of the licenses were in use, this number, your cost per license, is now 3 times what you think it is. So just starting to get a lot of information that you can tell appeals to a lot of use cases. So I'm going to pause here again. What other questions do we have?
I'd love to hear, Sean, like a little bit about how, and I don't, maybe you're prepped to talk about this in a minute and I'm just jumping the gun here. But love to hear like how your district has decided how to set up your dashboards, what that looks like, who's using it, who you connect with, maybe curriculum side of the house, and how you use these tools to, foster those relationships and at the site level and everything. So I just kind of want to know everything. I don't know if that's a definitive enough question, but would love to hear
We have time for
what
that.
Sean's got going on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say too, during the demo, it kind of hit me because before we were talking about IT and IT and IT, we have done training for some of our staff. We haven't trained any of our IT folks on this because really, as you dive in and see what's going on, this is a instructional tool, right? So our tech coaches have gotten some training on it, and our content area coaches have gotten some training on it, because that's kind of our vision. And that training happened very recently. So and then they all left for the summer. So we haven't even had a chance to really dive in and figure out, how it's going to look and what it's going to set up. But I think we kind of envision this idea of, if you're a math coach, you have a dashboard that's looking at the math apps, and you're looking at the ones that we approve, that we have adopted kind of formally as math resources for the district. And you're kind of looking to see, okay, which sites are utilizing those, which ones aren't, or even like which ones aren't approved that are being used too, right? And that's a different conversation. I think it's really important too, before you get too far down the road, to really be clear in kind of your philosophy of how you intend to use the data and what you're going to get out of it. Because it'd be really easy to kind of have a number and say, if this app isn't above 75%, we're going to exit, right? We're done with it. It's a little more nuanced, and I think probably a better outcome overall to have that number be a starting point and say, okay, that app's lower than we thought, or hey, this is like an adopted resource and we're not seeing the usage we think we should be seeing. Is it a PD issue? Is it a resourcing issue? Gosh, over here at these 5 schools, they're rocking and rolling. They're using that thing all the time. And wow, and we also happen to see that their test scores are going up, right? What's going on there that's working at those schools that isn't happening at these schools? So it's kind of a launch pad for those types of discussions, but you have to have the right people in the room, right? And that includes obviously curriculum departments and things like that. So that's absolutely how we see it being used, is kind of our coaches having kind of access to the things that they need to have, as well as directors and things like that. Long term, I think having site access to the right types of dashboards and things would be helpful for them too. But right now we're looking at it as what's being used out there, and possibly there's some things that are being used that shouldn't be, that maybe we didn't approve, that there's some serious privacy issues with, but maybe there's some things being used that we should be taking a look at. We have great teachers and oftentimes they're just trying to solve problems, that maybe they go to a conference. There's a big one coming up, I think, in a week or two, right?
Heard there's something going on.
Yeah, something going on in Philly, I think. That teachers are going to go and learn all these great resources and come back, and maybe we haven't approved them, but man, they're just going to hit the ground running and go to their classrooms. That's not what we would like to see, but this gives us that insight to say, oh man, that's an app we haven't heard about. Let's do some research and figure out how they're using it or what we can get out of that.
Like that. And then I think, Andrea, are you going to talk to the SDPC and the One Ed Tech and all that in a second? We're coming up on 2:44. So we have about 16 minutes left, and we'd love to open it up in about 5 minutes or so for everybody to just kind of chat and ask questions. But I want to make sure that, you notice the time, but that we talk about all the 4,000 questions we still have for you.
Yeah, perfect. Two things I want to hit on before you get to questions, and I'm going to talk really quick. So the student data privacy integrations that we have are key. So as you can see, I'm in a third-party review. So I am in one of the app profiles that I went to that we had approved. This is for iReady. And then what's going to happen with the integration with SDPC and OneEd Tech. So whether or not you are members of those consortiums or not, Digital Insight is still going to give you a lot of great detail as you learn. Hey, yes, this is being used. We know iReady is being used. Maybe it's something you aren't as familiar with. So you can click right into it. There's my OneEd Tech rubric for the trusted apps, looking for compliance around FERPA, COPPA, SIPA, GDPR. If I would have pulled up cool math games, we would see a lot of red and yellow in these particular rubrics here. So we know that if you are a member, you can click into the website, you're going to get more information, but it's still a great starting point to go, ooh, okay, do I need to look into this or not? If you are a district that, and I feel like in Arizona, it's not as big just yet. Than a lot of other states, depending on state regulations and laws. SDPC is a little bit more popular. What you would use, you can go in, I can click into here and see what other districts have contracts for this particular vendor. So it would show me, I can add my own agreement. If I've also been entering into SDPC, this is a bi-directional integration. So we're going to see all of that. I won't spend a ton of time there because I don't hear in Arizona just that it's as popular yet, because you haven't had a lot of the laws and regulations compared to like a California, an Illinois, a New York. It's starting. I know those conversations are there and it's great. So at least you kind of know what you're starting to work with and have an opportunity to see. So that's really big. The other piece I want to show you, and then I'll be quiet, Laura, and the approval management, and it's kind of following up on getting the aggregate view of everything that's been touched in the workflow. So I clicked on approval management at the top. You can see a lot of areas you can click into to get different reports. I can see right away, okay, we've approved 77. If you look over here on the left-hand side, we've marked 19 in review. We've not approved 11. I can click into those, get more detail, but this can be an internally facing list, but can also be public facing list. So this can go to parents. So you have an option within this tool to say, here's what I want to show them. I only want to show approved. But it's also good to say, no, we didn't approve this, and here's why. There's your third-party reviews. So was it vetted through SCPC, IMS Global? When did we approve it? So again, when we're getting those expirations on that widget, that's how we're starting to see this information. Who's supposed to use it, what campus uses it, and so on. So this is really big, that you have this aggregate list, public-facing list. And imagine your educators and resources internally being able to go, okay, hey, I'm getting ready to request this. Has it been approved? Is there something else that I should be using that's been approved, or so on? So those are the two things I wanted to hit on that we know are a big value to the districts that we work with. So what else, what other questions do we have, or what else can I show you?
Well, and I think you just answered most of Emily's question that was in the chat, where she was asking about this report. And I know, Sean, you could share with us what Chandler's doing in this area, but, talking about, is there a report or something that can be shared with parents? And my question on that is this shared with them? There you go. So you just share the link with them and they can get it there. You can put it on like this USD website and they can get to that, and it's filtered by what information you decide to share. And then Emily also asked if that would include links directly to the privacy policies, if that's available, or if that's not. Okay.
Yeah, it does not. So really what we're going to show you, they'll be able to see just what's been approved through the vetting process at the district. And then from the district management perspective, you're going to have 3 layers of users. So your power users, your main admin users are ones that are going to be able to see when those policy privacy updates change. So there's the management of it, but we don't have that direct link to that privacy policy.
Sounds very cool.
And I'll
And
say
Sean,
our plan right now is to go ahead and have a public facing list like that. We do that currently for our approved websites and approved apps and things like that. It's not quite as elegant as this one is, but that's our plan right now, is once we kind of get that workflow established and kind of migrate what we have now into Catch On and kind of have all those applications approved, we'll have that public facing list as well.
and how great for the teachers to be like an educator looking at an app to look and see if it's already been approved, as opposed to trying to reach out to IT or trying to work around and
Exactly.
saying, you know, I'm just going to use it and see what happens type thing.
Yeah.
So what kind of
So
questions does everybody else have? We have about 10 minutes.
Quick follow-up on my answer.
Yeah.
So there was not a direct link in that public facing app, but there is within the tool. So this is something that your internal users would see, where we do have just with that app profile where we give you all the great information. What is it? What are the tags? There's your funding source. You mentioned that. So you can filter and say, show me all of the tools that have been purchased by ESSER funds, by title funds, and really see the efficacy there. So that's a great use case, but there is a privacy policy here. So even though it's not public facing, internally, you would have access quickly to that policy.
So where is it pulling the funding information from? Are you going into Visions? Is that?
It's you. It's manually entered. So what happens is when you add licenses in and you approve one of those tools, you have that option to say, you know, here's how many licenses we have, here's what we paid for it, here's the funding source, and then we're going to spit out that data for you to use and maintain it moving forward. A question we get, or a request we get a lot, is can that be automated? We don't have an easy answer for that today because everybody does it so differently. So depending on whether it's purchased by the site or only in use by a specific site, you know, those sorts of things, but it is on our list to think about.
I like the idea actually of it being manual, only because if you have to get down to account codes,
Yeah,
districts would have to make some changes.
right.
That sounds
I
great.
was gonna say the manual makes sense to me because I think like we already enter that kind of stuff in spreadsheets we create and things like that. So the difference would be don't build your own spreadsheets, just enter that here.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you. I'm glad you all get that because it can be, folks get stuck on it sometimes. But I say you have to have a starting point. You're learning everything that's in use. Even this can be an ongoing process, right? You're still going to see engagement and usage and so on. And then you can start to add those licenses in as you go, or they're up for renewal. But this is what that would look like. I clicked on the add in bulk. You can add attachments, but just this is where you would start. This would become your Excel, as Lindsay said.
And it would be interesting because then you can cross-check with apps in use to see if they have been purchased at the district level, put into that list. And then if, you know, site level purchasing is happening, then those conversations can happen if they need to, in order to try to attack that, you know, site versus district purchasing elephant that we all have enjoyed for so long. Couple of questions in the chat related to teachers, educators, and how they're feeling about, you know, the process and the oversight and that type of thing. So Sean, how have you seen teachers reacting to the idea of getting these approved before using with students? Has that been enculturated for a while, or is that kind of new in Chandler? What's that looking like?
That's been in place for a while, well before I was in my position or even in the ed tech department at all. So that has been the culture for a while. Most teachers, I think, understand that we don't want just any piece of software installed on our computers. I think with kind of the increased focus on cybersecurity, that's been a much easier sell to give to them. And we've done some training on digital citizenship and privacy, and so that type of thing has helped. But that's been in place for a while. it can only go so far, because I mean, we have restrictions on devices, so teachers can't just install any app or software that they want to install. But the one that we sort of have a little bit of a challenge with, I guess, is websites, right? So if it's a website subscription that they have to pay for, and that goes through our purchasing department, they've been a pretty good kind of goalie for us, I guess you'd say, to kind of say, hey, that's not on the approved list, we need to go back and get that approved. So that's been helpful for us. But obviously the challenge is there's lots of free stuff out there that doesn't go through purchasing, that we'll never know about unless we get some kind of a tool like this. So I think most teachers get it, that if we're going to use district funds or use district resources to put stuff out there, we need to be careful and kind of check those things out. And so, like I said, there is kind of an IT track for those approvals to make sure there's no security issues there. There's the ed tech and the curricular side of things, looking at privacy aspects and the data aspects and the curricular alignment aspects. But the resources that are free, we don't always know about those until we get something like this.
Until you know, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know we have about 4 more minutes, but I did want to make sure that Donna's question got asked. Does anyone provide feedback on the apps that are submitted for approval, like using I like that, like using a Likert or something, on how the app is assessed and recommendations of other alternative apps? If it's not chosen, if it's not approved, do you provide a district, a district approved, recommended or recommended whatever app for them to use instead?
Yeah, we try to do that when we can. We try to kind of
Mhm.
say, hey, this tool you're wanting to use, we already pay for something like that, or there's this other version that's free that we trust a little more because of their their background, their history, their policies and things like that. So we do try to recommend alternative apps if we can. We don't necessarily have a formal Likert scale type thing. It's a little more informal, but if we don't approve something, and we typically do, but if we don't, we try to give them the reasons behind that. If it's a data privacy issue, that their privacy policy doesn't apply to kids under 18, or they don't have a privacy policy at all, or different things like that, we try to cover that. And again, we don't expect teachers to be experts in all that stuff. We have done some PD to help inform them about the process and why we have this process, and here are the things we look at. But that's an ongoing work in progress all the time to make sure that that's a sound process.
Ongoing conversation. And I know, like Diana had mentioned a while ago, that everybody owns student data privacy. It's not IT's. IT doesn't own it. We all own it. And the more we can educate and the more we all understand are on the same page, the better job we can do. Andrea, did you have something? I know it looked like you were scurrying about on your screen, looking like you were getting ready to show us something, and I don't want to miss it.
Yeah, and I'm always here. Sometimes when I do that, I'm trying to kind of follow along as those questions are rising. So this is an area where your teachers can request an application. So, different districts have different processes, but this is part of that workflow if you want it to be. And then these would feed up to your administrative users within Digital Insight. So, if it went to Sean can come back and say, hey, Laura, we've already approved this other tool instead, please take a look at it. But that they can request within Digital Insight as well.
Wow, I could save some workflow. Process creation, management, and maintenance.
What's the average time between requests and approval?
Yeah.
Kind of depends on the week. We try to get those turned around within like a week or two. There's some companies that are really upfront about those types of policies, and some you really have to dig around. So we're hoping with the tool like this, it'll help with the turnaround a little bit, because lots of that legwork has been done for us, having the policies and everything just kind of right there in one spot.
Right. So you just let staff know, like 2 weeks in advance, like not tomorrow.
Yeah, and obviously that doesn't stop every teacher from saying, hey, I need this website tomorrow, but we try to lay those expectations out, like, hey, there's this is complicated stuff, looking at network access and privacy policies and curriculum and all that stuff. It's a lot. So
Thank you.
And that would be interesting because districts do it different ways, right? And having that rolling approval process, I think not everybody knows that that's not done everywhere.
Right.
Right? That's a service that Sean's team is able to provide, because others, do it on a quarterly basis or a semester, or I've even heard of it being done on an annual basis. Like if you don't get that request in at the beginning of the year, we're not going to even have a chance to consider it, until the end of the year. And we are at, and I'm just going to interrupt, not stop the conversation, but pause the conversation for a second because we're at 2:59. We are going to stick around for a few minutes and we'll kind of have a little after party talk a little bit more. But I wanted to formally, to honor everybody's time who needs to step out right at 3, is to say thank you so much to Sean, and thank you so much to Andrea for coming in and talking about all of these things. Love to continue the conversation and, come back again soon, talk to us more. I know I learned a lot. I think every one of us have a new piece of information that we can take away. And oh my goodness, there's so much cool stuff there. So this is our formal thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you again soon. And now the formal time of our time together has ended with a thank you. And now we'll move into, now you just get to stick around and chat as long as you want. So as long as there are people here, we will keep chatting. And then Andrea just dropped in. She is going to be, are you going to be at ISTE, Andrea? No, I didn't think you were. Okay.
Unfortunately, I will not be, but we will be there in booth 2642. And we do have an event on June 26th from 6 to 9. So anybody that's going, please find us and join us for that. We'd love to see you.
That's awesome. All right, Emily Marshall, we will see you later. And then we will get the video posted on this, and then we'll include the ISTE information and your contact information and all of that. So what a fun. I'm thinking of all of the things, Sean, that when I was with a district that I used to do, creating workflows, manually doing this number of spreadsheets, CSV uploads, all of that, that took, a significant part of my day. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to offloading a little bit of that. So, that was one of my first jobs when I got the ed tech coach position.
Yeah.
I don't know how many years ago that was, 8 years ago or so, but that was one of my first tasks, was to kind of revamp the approval process. And we thought we were being really slick with Google Forms and sheets coming in and add-ons that were shooting out emails, and man, we thought we were just doing so well. And this
you
is
just gave me deja vu, Sean. That's exactly what we have in place right now.
There you go. See,
I
that's
created
right.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
See, that's why
we're right there with you.
When we're talking to people, that's why I go, oh, who keeps the spreadsheet, or what spreadsheet do you use? Because then I know, hey, we can simplify this for you. I'll add too, and Sean, you can speak to this. We don't just say, hey, good luck. You've got 1,800 tools that are in use. Go get them, Sean. Figure this out. We have regular meetings with Sean and other resources to try to guide them on use cases that we're hearing, ideas for widgets, reports, things like that. So this is too much information. It won't be successful. So that's a value add that we feel is great when we're partnering. So that's why I love Chandler, because they're so great to partner with and have these conversations and have great use cases and so on. So I wanted to share that as well.
Yeah, and we've gone pretty slow with this one. I mean, this is one, you can see from the scope of it, there's a lot to bite off. And so we're having a very deliberate, slow rollout, getting coaches trained and getting administrators to see what it can do. And then again, we still need to have some conversations, frankly, about kind of what the vision is, but there's a good conversation happening, and I think we're in a good place to really put it to use.
Now, Sean, you're still, your district's still collecting data security agreements, right? Who's housing those? Does that stay in purchasing?
Those do stay.
Yeah,
With it.
Yeah, purchasing.
Oh, yeah. With our research and assessment and probably data team, we're staying with that. But you saw, I think, in the demo that there's a place that you can upload those as, as part of the catch-on card.
Are those searchable? Can you, if you want to find what, agreements and everything that you've uploaded, Andrea, is that searchable somehow in the platform? If you don't remember, or a report, or both?
Yeah, you would go to that specific tool if I'm understanding your question, and then you
Yeah.
would see everything that's been attached there.
Okay.
Did you
Okay.
have to search? You'd have to search for what you know you're looking for.
Okay. That's what
Yeah.
I'm wondering. I was wondering if there would be like a global, you know, some sort of poll that you could do for like, if you're like, oh, do we have an agreement? Huh. Let's see if it's on file and that type of thing.
Well, and
Maybe not.
see, that's where the Student Data Privacy Consortium is very valuable. So districts that start to use that tool, that's really what it is. It's a repository of all of your contracts that they have on file. And then if you are using that, we will see that. Digital Insight will pull those in for you as well.
And that's it. Instead of everybody doing their, individual legwork over and over one at a time, once you choosy, like, working together and having a shared repository is huge.
And they have
Huge.
what's called an Exhibit E. So you can piggyback on an existing contract with an Exhibit E and do that. So not that I have any stake in STPC, but it's, just because it is so widely used and valuable, that's why we have that integration there.
That makes sense.
I think
All
what
right.
resonates most with me about this is like, I was just thinking back to like our CI and IT. And that's just, so much of what we do is just circling that challenge of like, why there is nothing that curriculum does that shouldn't involve IT. Most of what IT does should also involve curriculum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Creating that bridge. And there's so many ways we need to create that bridge, but having these pieces of information all in one place, because we all end up making our own spreadsheets, our own Google Drives, our own whatevers.
Amen, Lindsay.
Yeah. You're preach it, because you're absolutely right.
You preach it, because I can't get people to listen all the time. And I'm going, you're not the one that's tasked with this every day. There's somebody else that's having to manage all of this. So it's no skin off.
A lot of like not knowing, like you don't know what you don't know, right? And so,
Yep.
coaches and curriculum people hear about some shiny new thing and they move on it and they don't realize,
Right.
that what goes into it, or it's not safe, or et cetera, et cetera. IT also comes up with some great shiny new things without thinking about how it's going to impact the teacher, in the classroom.
Yeah.
The message coaches are doing. So.
And another piece of this, I didn't even get into it, but you jogged my memory there, Lindsay. We have added a module to Digital Insight called Digital Equity. So digital equity really appeals to IT. So it's a solution for everyone. Even funding to procure it a lot of times is split between CNI and IT, or you can use title funds, ESSER funds, so on. But with digital equity, it shows internet access at home. So as you're rolling out additional devices, district leaders can say, okay, what's the health of that device? They can actually see individual speeds up and down. There's an overlay of a map going, okay, there's an issue in this area and the provider is Verizon, for example. So we know that's a challenge that's out there, but at least it gives, there's nothing else like this today that provides that. And we added that in as a module to Digital Insight.
So how is it licensed? Is it enrollment? Is it?
So per student is how it's licensed. Today, I'm always careful to say that, but today we give it at no cost to administrators and teachers, because we want them to have it, because we know that we think people would be inclined to go, oh, they don't need it. We're going to be the ones to look at it, but you really want them to have it. You want to create that workflow, visibility into that published apps list. That's no additional cost.
Very cool. I don't know if you guys can hear the dog growling. Sorry about that. So 1,000 other questions, but we are at 3:10. So Nan, you haven't gotten a peep in yet. Did you have anything you wanted to talk about, discuss, share?
No, great discussions. As Lindsay represents our district's voice in terms of what we've been doing in the past couple of years. moving more in that trusted ed environment. But yeah, still more work to be done.
Absolutely. All right. Sean, did Colleen have anything she wanted to share with the group or say, or any questions or thoughts as we wrap up?
No, she's good.
Awesome.
See you in
All
Philly.
right. I
Most-
love it.
What do we have?
Awesome.
Less than, less than like 8 days? 9 days?
Woo, woo. Yes. Gonna be
I'm like,
fun.
get me in, because the time I tried, it was all sold out. Whoop, whoop.
Well, and Asti, when are we doing all of our fun stuff? Where will we be? Where can we be found, Nan?
We
When
will
we-
be at the Lowe's on Tuesday morning. I'm going to send out a hey, we're gonna be here. This is the time we're gonna be there. We are limited to 30 people. Unfortunately, because of the space size, it's not very big.
Mhm.
So it's gonna be basically first come, first serve, whoever gets signed up. So
Get in there.
we'll get that out probably by Monday.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
But
kind of
it'll-
waiting for the email on the.
Yeah, watch your emails. It'll be Tuesday, 7 to 8:30, I think, because I think the keynote's at 8:30. So it's
8:30-ish. Yeah.
like an
Very
hour.
cool. Love it.
All
All right. Anything
Great.
that I'm forgetting, Lindsay, to say or do, Diana, that I'm forgetting to say or do, or are we like rock stars for the day and this was amazing?
I think we're good. This was a very good session. Very
Truly.
interesting, very, very helpful. So
Oh, yeah.
got
Great, thanks for the invite.
my brain's going now. So
Wonderful.
Right?
Thank you so
I
much
appreciate it.
again for the opportunity,
Yeah.
and we appreciate it. Sean, Colleen, thank you always for your advocacy and partnership. And thank you, Nan. I'm glad to see you, because I started all of this and going, what can I do? How can I do this? How can I get exposure with Nan? So thank you for that. So anybody that has other questions, please direct them to me. We can jump on, do a more specific demo to your environment, to your needs. I would love to do that. So thank you.
Absolutely. We'll get your information shared out on the website with the link to the video when we get that posted and everything. And you should see that in the next few days.
Perfect.
Wonderful.
All right. Take care,
Thank-
everybody.
thank
Good,
you.
thanks,
All
everyone.
right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
You
Thanks.
too. Thanks again.
Bye.